Hello, one and all. This is Doc Ito, here to purvey the finest in bespoke audio narration directly to your ear holes, courtesy of Bulletproof Cookie, the second best kind of cookie after peanut butter, with episode 20 of the Civ Battle Royale X Season 3, The Past That Does Not Forget. An age of new ideals and principles takes root in this fragile world. Desperation not to be left behind and a need to grow stronger will make or break empires of every size. The 20th episode spectacle of the Civ Battle Royale Season 3 saga promises to continue where we left off last episode and build on the suspense, drama, anticipation, and madness that has enveloped the cylinder. As your narration guide in these next 12 turns, I have a sworn duty to tour you through this album and images and perhaps make sense of everything that is happening. Narrator Bulletproof Cookie may or may not actually cover literally everything happening on each slide, though hopes to at least do so for the most notable events. Move over, Varea. Map making has a new kid on the block. Fiona has produced an excellent map, not just highlighting the cities of each empire and their names, but also highlighting the names of each Civ's government. Well done. Explosive Watermelon has made a proposal to update the War Declaration icon for future seasons of the CBRX to a more JoJo meme-inspired design, in the hopes that it will help narrators understand who is actually the one declaring war of the two Civs. But yeah, worth reminding all future narrators once again, when you see the War Declaration icon, the one with the two Civs side by side, it is the one on the right side of the icon that is declaring the war, not the Civ on the left side. Why Firaxis designed it this way is beyond me, but just treat the icon like you're reading a manga, I guess, backwards. I'm not sure which is the aggressor in terms of the making peace icon, but it is also weird to me that the notification text for said icon basically reads, "The Civ on the bottom half of the icon has made peace with the Civ on the top half of the icon." We must, of course, highlight the loyal patrons of the sub that continue to support those who help make the Cbrix series a reality. Good work, soldiers! The power rankers have been hard-pressed between whether Turkey, Cree, or Tuva should be number 1 this week, but ultimately went with Turkey. With that said, the Inca shouldn't be slept on, as despite being technologically inferior to one of their neighbors, they've pushed out of their region with deeper expansion into Oceania. If they can continue their aggressiveness, I could see Tupac winning the hearts of the PR team and the number 1 spot in the coming episodes. And with that, we immediately waste no time getting to the juicy bits of tonight's steak, as the American assault on what's left of the Seminole civilization appears to be nearing its climax. The constant bombardment of Cuscabulla from military units in their territory is causing a population loss for Mechanope's remaining city. With plenty of knights and ship vessels ready to storm the city, Seminole supporters may wish to prime their F-keys for the inevitable. News has reached across the Brandenburg Empire of the emergence of a local businesswoman named Coco Chanel. She has reportedly been making a name for herself and plenty of money as a fashion designer, as well as expanding her business into handbags and perfumes. It is rumored even Frederick William II has been seen on occasion carrying around a small bottle of her Chanel No. 5 product. Whether he plans to give it to a loved one or just uses it on himself is another mystery, though. East of Brandenburg, Yaroslavl falls to the Lithuanian state, where Gediminas has ordered for the captured city to be burned down. It is unknown whether it is to send a message to the people of Vladimir, because the city has been deemed logistically and strategically useless, or because Gediminas has deemed the location too cold and hopes starting a few fires will warm the surrounding climate for a possible resettlement. It's a bad start to the episode for Tetuan fans, as the capital falls to Malian forces. The remaining naval force that surrounds the city hopes to pull something off to flip back the city, but it seems very unlikely they will be successful. A fact that Tetuan Grandmaster Saida al-Hurra is aware of, and decides not to further endanger whatever military he still has, and calls upon a peace treaty between the two civilizations. Unfortunately for Saida, President Sundiata Keita proves to be bullish in the negotiations and forces Saida to cede the city of Meknes to him as well, leaving two cities split apart from each other in Marrakesh and Saleh. As America looks to expand south, their northwesternmost city, Philadelphia, faces a wave of Cree land units advancing into American territory, led by General Jan Karol Chodkiewicz, known in real life as a Lithuanian military commander who fought in wars against Sweden and the Ottomans. I have some good news and some bad news for Massagetei fans. The good news is that they have retaken their capital, Jaxartes. The bad news is not only did they immediately lose it back to the Permians, but Oxus was also captured by Tuva, and Chorasmia looks certain to fall within a turn or two's time. It is all coming down for Tomyris. On the other side of the Permian Empire, a Vladimiran great engineer arrives named Blaise Pascal, a mathematician and inventor of the mechanical calculator. Vsevolod opts to send him to the front lines for some reason, either to plant down a manufactory close to Suzdal, or maybe because Vsevolod wants to conscript his greatest thinkers with no military training and send them to their deaths. And thus the Seminole capital of Cuscahuila falls to America, with only a damaged pikeman unit left of the Seminole military as it looks on with a defeated response. The remaining soldiers ask themselves, where did it all go wrong? Sadly for the Seminole, things literally all went wrong at the very beginning, when America beat them to a forward settle of each other in the opening turns of the game, and Mechanope was never able to course-correct after that. America attacked them not long after, and it was evident from their poor statistics at the crucial early stages of the game that were going to dampen whatever chances they had of emerging as a power. They stupidly gave away Apopka to Roosevelt after almost losing it to the fucking Comanche, and never got back to two cities ever again after Episode 4. They outlasted almost a dozen civs before Roosevelt finally came to finish them off, and they were arguably one of the 3 or 5 worst-performing civs in this entire season. Then again, what did you expect from a civ whose starting location was Florida? At least it wasn't Ohio. Oviedo goes back into the hands of Isabella, and the Irish don't seem to have an immediate way back into the city just yet. Instead, Irish forces start pushing to take the Greenlandic city of Christianshavn, though the Castilian advance south of the British Isles could disrupt Michael's chances. Central America manages to flip Managua from the Muisca, though Nemequene still has enough units close to the city capable of retaking it. The blockade of Guatemala City remains, with no chance to bombard the city with frigates just yet. With the construction of factories in at least 3 of its cities, ideologies come into play for the first time in this game, as Raoni Metuktire has chosen to adopt the liberalism ideology for the Kayapo people. Assuming that liberalism is just a renamed freedom, and the tenets are exactly the same as the base games, it should give a bigger boost to smaller civs than the bigger ones, and given that the goal of this game is to conquer everyone else, that sounds like a recipe for disaster, should it become the world's leading ideology. But hey, it allows Kayapo the opportunity to grow faster and try to zoom past the tech tree quicker, so the smart get smarter, I guess. The Mali Empire's fortunes seem to continue with the birth of a great merchant named Ose Tutu. I am assuming this is referring to Ose Kofi Tutu I, who was one of the founders of the Ashanti Empire. Makes sense, given the geological location of the Ashanti in real life. Tomyris is not one to go down without a fight, as her dwindling army manages to flip back Oxus, even if the chances of it flipping back are likely. Chorasmia manages to hold the defense of the city, even as its population slowly starves. News spreads through the Cree Empire of a rock band that's been playing concerts in Loon River. Big Star, an influential American band from the 1970s, has reportedly even caught the attention of a great Cree artist, too. There were also some rumblings of a naval skirmish between the Cree and the Mojave, and an advancing army surrounding Agawesh, which caught Poundmaker by surprise. Roosevelt was hopeful to now focus his military efforts up north, only to receive news that the Seminole pikemen near Cuscahuela had managed to rally up a small resistance in the outskirts of the city. "Barbarians!" Roosevelt muttered to himself, as he ordered several knights and ranged naval vessels to deal with the issue. As that is going on, the American city of Baltimore, located in North Scotland, is being attacked by an Irish wave. Only a frigate, trebuchet, and the city's own defenses are what's available to repel the forces. And what's this? Another ideology adopted? In addition to their base ideology, each civilization can also adopt a spirit ideology as well. The Kayapo have chosen the nationalism ideology to go alongside liberalism. The attack on Agawesh's city defense is in full swing, the charge being led by General El Cid, a Castilian knight and warlord from medieval Spain. Irataba has also ordered several ships to sink the Cree's navy near Wabasca. It would appear they are not merely interested in just one undefended city. The Permians have surrounded the city of Telsii with their unique unit, the Batirs. It looks certain to fall, and Upite could be next on the Bear's Plate. Most of Lithuania's forces in the screenshot are more focused in the offense against Vladimir, the latter of which is hoping the clump of composite bowmen will be enough to protect Tver from possibly falling. As we look on to the north of Australia, it appears Timor-Leste is bombarding the port of Wagga Wagga with frigates and a galleon, which is stationed and ready to move in once the city's defenses have crumbled. Hey, wasn't there a city named Dumut where that Mojave settler is standing? I guess not anymore. The Inca must have razed it upon capturing. And Wagga Wagga is still one of the best city names to say out loud 5 times fast. Wagga 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 Wagga. And Tuva takes back Oxus and finally nabs Chorasmia from the Massagette. With only one melee unit left in this screenshot, I am certain Tomyris is not getting those cities back ever again. I'm also just realizing that their composites are getting shot at by the puppeted city of Ishma. The Anglo-Dutch have planted a lot of defensive forts inside their territory in the hopes they will help William III keep out invaders, but Brandenburg has been planting the far superior citadels to steal territory from The Hague. This will make a future invasion far easier for Frederick William I. And on the subject of citadelling, the Normans have joined in on the fun by citadelling Salé, just to add insult to injury. It has been a horrible episode for Saida al-Hura. Things are still not looking good for Roosevelt up north, as Philadelphia has very little to defend itself now, and the Kree's land forces are slowly approaching the city. As that is going on, Agawesh has fallen, and Irataba has chosen to set the city ablaze to send a message to Poundmaker. News makes the round of another great merchant with Brandenburg territory, this time TV Sung, who was a Chinese businessman and politician. Frederick William is hoping he will make a useful political figure for his government. If you were paying attention to your right-hand side, you'd have noticed something. Yes, Yugoslavia has launched an attack on the Anglo-Dutch. The main target appears to be Amsterdam. Josip Broz Tito will be banking on a successful conquest here if he wishes to compete with his neighbors. But it appears Yugoslavia's African settlements have been left pretty unguarded as a pack of Mali Tontigis advance on the city of Split, which seems pretty properly named given the isolation of it and Pristina to the rest of Yugoslavia. Wagga Wagga is barely holding on while an Incan Yamp Ranuncha, a unique Great Admiral replacement, who goes by the name Yampu Runancha, sails just outside Incan waters escorted by a galleon. The Incan Navy is now looking to regroup to continue west to its next target, Yarawuda, which is also a fun city name to say out loud 5 times fast. Yarawuda, 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 Yarawuda. And Managua is back in Nemequene's hands, but things are looking much worse than a few turns ago for Francisco Morazon, as not only is the enemy fleet approaching Sonsonate, but a surge of crossbowmen are obliterating the health of Guatemala City. If not careful, Central America could just be San Salvador. In other news, the revolt in Coscuela has been successfully dealt with. The Permians take Telsai and have been given the order to set it ablaze by Azike. Upite is now all alone, with its best defense being the mountains by its side, stunting the effectiveness of a flanked attack. Also, worth pointing out that the Vladimir capital is not at full health in this slide, meaning that Lithuania's attack on the city itself has begun. We now take a brief break from the madness to compare governments of the remaining civs. They may no longer have any cities, but King Willie Seaweed still has a kingdom to rule, I guess. How one can rule a kingdom without any land, I do not know. Guess that's why they call it a monarchy in exile. Does that also mean we as a sub have exiled Nebuchadnezzar II? Or do we live alongside Neb in exile from the rest of the cylinder? I get the feeling I am supposed to be focusing on the other governments, but I am way more interested in how these monarchy and exiles would work in this world. How does King Machanape feel now that his last city's fallen, and in response its citizens revolted only to be swatted down by the American army? More government screenshots. I guess Nemequene is known as the diplomat to his people. I don't see it in his current war in Central America unless his method of diplomacy is just, let us negotiate. You concede your cities, and I'll let you live. And our screenshot shows us that after adopting liberalism and nationalism, Rauni Metuktire is now referred to as Rauni, son of heaven, by the will of the people, chief of Kayapo. And now let's go into the in-game editor to check on the tech paths of certain civilizations. We'll start with our science leaders, the Kayapo Confederacy, who are midway into the industrial era, having already researched Romanticism, industrialization, and archaeology, They have neglected the bottom end of the Enlightened Era tree for now, but it's not like they currently need the extra growth or defense with their comparatively high population cities and jungle terrain. To put into perspective how far ahead Kayapo are compared to the other frontrunners, this is the tech tree of the Kree, who have barely made it into the industrial era, but have yet to discover acoustics. Then there is the Tuva, who have only discovered one Enlightenment-era tech so far in navigation. It is worth pointing out that Tuva is located inland in the middle of North Asia, so it's not like they're benefiting much right now from frigates. Timor-Leste's tech tree shows they have discovered navigation, which makes complete sense given they're a coastal civ, economics, and natural history. I'm beginning to notice a lot of civs seem to be neglecting flintlock, acoustics, and architecture. Yikes! I didn't realize how badly the Permians were doing in the science race until I saw this screenshot. They have only managed to discover 7 of the 12 Renaissance techs and haven't even entered the Enlightenment era yet. They better get their science sorted if they want to be credible threats in the late game. Brandenburg has not done much better, though they have at least researched scientific theory for those public schools. I would have thought they might have also invested a bit more into naval tech, given a large part of their cities are coastal. Han seems to have opted to research chemistry to get access to cannons, but they have yet to discover humanism. They too have navigation, for they have access to frigates, so they can defend their coastal territory, and possibly expand it. The Wiradjuri are still in the Renaissance era, and are one of the few to have actually researched acoustics. Given their conflict with Timor-Leste, they should probably be going for navigation. Lastly, we get a look at Afghanistan's tech tree. They've gone for the bottom of the tree instead and have discovered fortification. I'm not sure why imperialism is being highlighted since the Afghans have yet to research it, so I'm assuming the cursor was left there by accident. I do like the weight houses for the extra gold they bring. They work similarly to markets and banks. And cuirassers are decent mounted units. You may have seen a few in Kayapo's territory. Alright, getting back to the action, the Vsevolod comes to his senses and realizes sending their great engineer to get killed or captured is not the best use of it, and instead directs Pascal over to Adana. And absolutely nothing else to see on this slide. No siree Bob. Definitely no great people being highlighted near to Atil. The battle for Oviedo rages on as Ireland tries another push to flip the city, while a notable number of American ships are a short distance away from Tralee and Christianshavn. Unfortunately for the American fleet, the naval action they should be a part of is located at Baltimore, which is being ambushed by the Irish invaders. The inability to control their happiness has led Lithuania to experience an uprising in the fields of the capital Vilnius in the form of knights who have pillaged the local trading posts in protest. Lithuania is not helped by the fact that most of their army is busy in the war against Vladimir. Kim Il-sung decides to plant a citadel on the two-tile island south of Chongjin to take control of the surrounding waters east of it, making Kaifeng look more cramped than it probably is. In northern Japan, Shakushin can only look out of his palace from Usukeshi, and hope that they don't come for him again. "The time to strike is now!" belts José de San Martin as he orders his men to charge straight at Machu, declaring war on the Inca. He really didn't have a choice if he wishes to get back in the race, and Machu and San Salvador are pretty much unguarded right now. If he is to take either city, it could come at a bloody cost. Oh boy, things are not looking good for the Cree, as they appear to be a victim of a growing coalition as the Cylinder grows concerned after their recent conquest of the Kwakwakawaku. Already at war with America and the Mojave, they now have the Gokturks to worry about too, as Buman Kagan declares war. More than likely, the first city they will attack will be Tsatsisnukomi, as it's the closest city as well as completely defenseless. Split is surrounded and sent to the yellow by the Malian army as a few Yugoslavian reinforcements arrive to try and fend off the invasion. The Normans also try something against Chad, but Aouzou is well fortified with ranged units. Managua has been flipped back and forth by both civs, but it looks like it's staying with the Muisca for good now, and it doesn't appear Guatemala City will be able to hold on much longer. Central America appears to be at the point of collapsing. The Incan fleet moves in to assault multiple targets. Hora Hora isn't currently in danger of being flipped, as most of the ships are sailing towards Igaura. As this happens, the Maori are eyeing another settlement on the island northwest of Watiwatihoe. Hora 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 Hora. Only a small portion of the American armada, for whatever reason, sails up to Tralee to start the attack, while their great admiral is sailing all by itself. Ireland has also neglected reinforcing Tralee, with most of their military located in Britain. Baltimore has also recovered some of its health, implying the Irish offensive over there is weakening. Things have been relatively quiet in South Asia, but here we see Afghanistan's attempt at invading Kokang this episode. But it's proving difficult to traverse through the choke point to launch any reasonably effective assault on Tin Par Kang. Such are the benefits of being surrounded by harsh terrain, such as mountains. And things must not be rosy over in Bengal if a Landsknecht is uprising for whatever reason he may have. Yugoslavian explorers come from the west to evaluate the situation in Lithuania, where they are still making a push to set things up for a bombardment on the city defenses of Tver and the Vladimir capital itself. Elsewhere, a Lithuanian musketman manages to recapture Telsii before the city could burn to rubble. Can the liberated city hold off another onslaught? News has quickly reached Tupac Yupanqui of the Platanese invasion, and he is able to call up a small force of units to defend Machu. You can really start to see the difference in text discovered between the two civs, as Rio de la Plata are still housing composites and regular horsemen. Sorry, Jose, but that's not going to cut it at this stage of the game. Your army is pretty much obsolete now, and that Chilean wave of crossbowmen would easily mow it down. Still, you can't blame them for trying. It's now or never time for the civ that was once ranked first in the pre-game power rankings. Despite fighting wars on 3 fronts, the Cree continue to put pressure on Philadelphia as it enters the red. The efforts of the men in battle have called for a new great general to be assigned. Lozen, who in real life was a warrior and prophet of the Chihene Chiricahua Apache that, legends say, used her powers to learn the movements of the enemy, is currently stationed at Sturgeon Lake, and Poundmaker will be hoping to make the most of her abilities. Poundmaker doesn't really need Lozen to predict where Kagan's army will strike first. As assumed, the Gokturks have gone after the isolated city of Tsatsisnukomi, and it really doesn't look like the cannon and the frigate will be enough to repel the attack. The coastal cities of the Wiradjuri Empire north of Australia are not doing well. The Incan fleet has begun to concentrate fire at Yarrawadda, and Ugaura looks to be next in line. And Wagga Wagga is only holding on thanks to a lack of Timor-Leste melee units around to take the city. And with that, Guatemala City falls. Can Francisco take back the capital? Possibly, but the outlook still doesn't look good. And Sonsonate is now on the backhand of a beatdown by the Muiscan fleet. Kayapo continues to use its science to snipe as many Enlightenment-era world wonders as it can, with the Kronborg joining his collection. It could be a useful wonder for Rowney to break out of South America, as it gives 25 additional hit points to all coastal cities in the Empire and an extra 50% production towards naval units in the city where it is built. Sure enough, the Maori have settled the new city of Taumamari to bolster their city count. The Incan Empire, meanwhile, wished to bolster theirs by capturing Yarrawadda and Ugaura, the latter of which is close to falling. The Muisca do indeed take Sonsonate, but opt to burn its population down while they begin to close in on San Salvador. Central America does manage to flip back their capital, but it's still vulnerable to being recaptured. Inspired by the revolt in Cuscahuila, the Seminole descendants rise up within the outskirts of Loxahatchee, but they too are quickly disposed of. Do you remember the Lithuanian city of Rokiskis that was settled in North Siberia? Well, it's Tuvas now. Deal with it. They got there in the end. Timor-Leste has captured Wagga Wagga, but it looks like Milingimbi is being attacked back on mainland Australia. We can't get a good look on this slide, but you can see the health bar. Tupac, meanwhile, has been busy. Yarrawadda is now his, with Ugaura soon to follow. That wasn't the only city the Inca captured, by the way, as that galleon that was close to Guatemala City in the last slide with Central America has managed to capture it. The Mojave are making a move towards taking Wabasca from the Cree. It's in the red, with several privateers and galleons ready to snipe it. In other developments, Tomyris finally accepts defeat and makes peace with Azike. Take a close look at the minimap and you'll see it wasn't just a white peace deal. Here is the confirmation that Guatemala City is Tupac's for now. The chances of it flipping back to white and blue aren't zero, but Francisco's army seems pretty much spent at this point. Nemequene is kicking himself for letting that one slip, so it will now be taking out its frustration against San Salvador. Also, Sonsonate is no longer being raised. During the peace negotiations, Azike was dead set on Tomyris ceding the city of Aras to end the war, and managed to get his way. This leaves Tomyris with the only city left to her name in Asir, which neighbors another rumped city-state in Tamantarkham, where Bulan of the former Khazarian Empire resides. All that is left for both of them is the waiting game before getting picked off once and for all. I am sad that Tomyris couldn't be more of a major player in this game, by the way. I was really pulling for the Massagette to be this game's Central Asian big power, but it was not meant to be. Oh dear. all that time wrestling with Wagga Wagga, and the Wiradjuri managed to take Milingimbi while Zanana was distracted. With military stationed outside of Irkalla as well, Zanana will need to get its forces back to mainland Australia to defend their remaining cities, or Timor-Leste will be pushed out of the continent. The Cree succeed in capturing Philadelphia from America in the only war they are currently on the offensive in. There is still the possibility of it being flipped back, but the city should end up firmly in Poundmaker's control. With Ugara falling to the Inca, Windradine sends a lone galleon to its death to try to take back Wagga Wagga. You can barely notice it, but Timor-Leste has retaken Milingimbi. The Western Front continues to go poorly for the Cree as they lose Wabasca to the Mojave. The city's workers, alongside a great musician, have no clear escape route as naval units and a couple of crossbowmen circle the city as its inhabitants slowly die from the burns inflicted from the razing. There is also a little bit of a naval skirmish between the Cree and the Gokturks up north. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk is finally doing something this episode as he sends a small wave of units across the Black Sea to attack Novgorod. Whether this is a prelude to a bigger operation remains to be seen. Also, that citadel Turkey planted next to Adana wasn't there at the start of the episode. Ataturk has not forgotten that Vladimir took that city from him. America has bumbled the attack on Tralee, as the closest melee unit they have to the city is a knight that has to get past a trebuchet and crossbowman first to even reach the city. Those units close to Wales would have been better served to back up the attack on the city. In fairness, though, Ireland aren't doing much better with Baltimore, as their longswordsman is being blocked from standing on an adjacent tile thanks to poor unit placement. The attack on San Salvador seems to have stopped. My guess is Nemequene doesn't want to take the associated warmonger penalty that comes with capturing a civ's last remaining city. Central America takes this opportunity to send a couple of musketmen to try and liberate the capital, while Tupac is dealing with the discontent within his lands and sends a settler in the hopes there could be some island that hasn't been claimed yet. Can you notice the difference between this slide's minimap and the previous slides? We'll cover it later if you can't. The war between Timor-Leste and the Wiradjuri comes to an end, with Windradine coming out on the losing end. They were definitely not helped by the Inca attacking them, and who are still at war with them. Timor-Leste now has the opportunity to carpet his Australian territory in preparation for a future offensive. We've got some spicy religion screenshots for it. Wait, we only have one? Michael Collins has done a terrible job spreading the beliefs of Oriental Orthodoxy to the unenlightened masses. Couldn't even get the entirety of the British Isles to follow it. And here is an extra government overview slide to dig into. The recent conquests of Cree cities has led to Irataba crowning himself emperor of his people as the Social Democrats become the leading party. They've done it. The Central Americans have recovered their capital. How long will they keep it? At least for another week. Central America is doomed in the long run, but they survive the episode with at least 2 of their cities, even if one has become barren through all the city flips. Again, Roosevelt could easily have taken Tralee had he not sent all those units sailing south of Ireland. This is typical bad Civ 5 AI behavior when it comes to naval invasion. Ireland takes the opportunity to peace out with Greenland. Kristiansand was never placed in any danger of falling this episode. The occupied city of Meknes has been having it rough, as the city is being attacked by Yugoslavia, and most of its population has since starved to death since the trade earlier in this episode. Being isolated from the rest of the Malian Empire isn't doing it any favors. And Sundiata Keita couldn't give a rat's ass as he announces an invasion of Castile, declaring war. The first target is the one-tile island of Burgos, which has already been blockaded from the rest of the empire. It is certain to fall, or at least flip once, unless Isabella can tactically outsmart Keita's armada. I'm sure there are some readers who are more excited upon the prospect of North Korea living in a golden age. Oh boy, things are about to get bad for Shakushain as the Mori and Maori connection has formed to finish off the Ainu. This will likely result in Mori Motonari nabbing Usukeshi unless someone else swoops in at the last minute to snipe the city. How the Modoc Kingdom is having a golden age when whatever was left of its civilization got decimated in the last episode is beyond me. Maybe Kintgwash is relieved to no longer have a kingdom to rule over. Poundmaker has incorporated rock and roll into his tactics, as two knights escort Big Star onto the island where Wabaska is located. The band plays in the hopes their music will prove to be a rallying cry for the Cree military. The Mojave are confused by said tactics, but don't hesitate in firing on the knights to discourage the singing. The Permians have recaptured Talisai and have now also captured Upite in an effort to reduce border gore between the two civs. With troops slowly crossing through the mountains, the Permians may not be done just yet, should they seek another Lithuanian city. The Seminole are still at war with America. My guess is their war declaration last episode is Mechanope making it clear that no matter what Roosevelt does to him or his people, they will always fight back. Would explain the uprisings in the occupied settlements. Sire, what is the plan in our offensive against the Inca? Pillage their citadels, belted José de San Martín. Show them their defensive forts shall crumble under the might of Rio de la Plata. And they did just that. Sadly, pillaging tiles is really all José has accomplished so far, as they are barely putting a dent into Machu's city defenses. This war could backfire immensely in the next episode, especially if Salvador Allende strikes while José's army has its back facing them. You know what? I'm officially writing it in my headcanon that the oppressed Seminole citizens are what is causing Roosevelt's constant dark ages in this game. It all started when they captured Apopka long ago, and now, much like Cuscabulla and Loxahatchee, there is a third uprising this episode occurring south of Apopka. Coincidence? I think not. Also, America recaptured Philadelphia. Here's the confirmation that the Gokturks did capture Tsatsis-Nukomi earlier. With no major push to go any further this episode, a couple of Cree frigates can be seen crossing Gokturk waters near to Zawadi. Kagan already has cannons and crossbows stationed on the fortified islands around it. Also, the Cree recaptured Philadelphia. And we close this episode by witnessing how little progress Gediminas has made in his war against Vladimir since capturing Yaroslavl at the start of the episode. This was ultimately a real letdown of an episode for Lithuania, when you take into account they lost 2 cities to the Permians too. Maybe they can come back from this, or maybe in future we can look back and point to this war as the turning point for Gediminas' fortunes. And that ends this week's action. Special congratulations to the South African civs for doing absolutely naff all episode, demonstrating why every civ in the region will eventually be gobbled by their North African neighbors. You don't win a Civ Battle Royale by stagnating as a small empire, small fry. To recap the most important events of the episode, America eliminated the Seminole, but their spirit lives on through constant uprisings. After claiming the Tetuan capital for themselves, Mali have started an invasion against Castile. The Massagette have been reduced to a rump state by both Tuva and the Permians. Lithuania missed the opportunity to rump Vladimir this episode while losing a couple of cities to the Permians in the process. Central America is slowly falling apart. The Cree are fighting wars on 3 different fronts against America, the Mojave, and the Gokturks. The Wiradjuri lost cities to both Timor-Leste and the Inca. Kayapo be trippin' beakers. Rio de la Plata has launched a desperate war against the Inca to regain relevance. The Ainu are in trouble as their closest neighbor Mori declares war on them. This has been Bulletproof Cookie, wishing you all a good march. And as ever, I've been your host, Doc Ito. Farewell, and always remember, wagga 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 wagga.